If you're listening to this episode right now, I want you to pause for just a second. Take a breath. Because this is not a hustle harder episode. This is not a set bigger goals episode. This is an episode about ending things well. And I believe, truly believe, that the way that you close a year matters more than the way that you start the next one. And most salon owners are obsessed with what they're going to add next year: new goals, new hires, new systems, new offers, new energy. But here's what I've learned, both personally and in business: nothing new can fully come in until something old is released. Or, as I like to say, it's more important to get something out than it is to get something in. So, today we're talking about closing loops, unfinished conversations, incomplete promises, lingering beliefs, half decisions, and why this might be the most powerful leadership move you make all year long.
So good, Lindsay. I love what you just said. It's more important to get something out than it is to get something in. Man, that was really
Mm,
good. Love that. So let me
mhm.
ask you a quick question. Have you ever walked into your closet? This is a great time of year people start cleaning out their closets and you felt overwhelmed. Like not because you don't have enough clothes, but because you have too many things that no longer fit. Things you don't wear, things that you feel guilty getting rid of, things that represent an older version of you. And that's what open loops feel like in your business as well. Open loops are the team conversation you've been avoiding, the stylist who should have been coached or released, or the price increase you said you were going to do, or the promise you made to yourself, let's say last January, and quietly broke it. And here's the most dangerous part: you don't consciously think about these things all day, but your nervous system actually does. Is that so interesting? And when your leadership signal is blurry, your team actually feels it.
Mm, that's so good. Because we believe that strong leaders don't just start things well, they finish things well. So inside of salons, we teach finishing the consultation strong, finishing the service strong, finishing the, entire guest experience strong. But we forget to apply that same discipline to our own leadership. And unfinished things create confusion instead of clarity, tension instead of trust, noise instead of focus. And here's the truth most salon owners don't want to hear: your team will never feel safer than your level of completion. Because when things linger, when expectations are vague, or, when consequences are unclear, your team fills in the gaps with stories. And stories rarely work in your favor.
So good. That's so true, though, when you think about it. Stories rarely work in your favor.
Mhm.
Um, this brings me to the pruning principle, Lindsay, when I think about, and there's truly a reason pruning exists in nature.
Mhm.
Pruning is not punishment. Pruning is not failure. Pruning is not loss. Pruning is intentional removal so something stronger can actually grow. And when you think
Mhm.
about it, this applies to everything. It applies to systems, to team dynamics, to habits, to beliefs, to even identities. And, a lot of us are trying to go to 2 to 3 or $5 million salons with leadership beliefs that were formed when you were just trying to survive. And when you think about that, that will not work. Like, you cannot add confidence on top of insecurity. You cannot add clarity on top of avoidance. And you cannot add growth on top of guilt. Something has to come out first.
Yes, that's so true, Jen. Something does have to come out first. So let's go ahead and talk about beliefs for a moment, because this is where most personal development gets it wrong. People think if I just listen to the right podcast, or if I just read the right book, or if I just attend the right event, then they'll get a new belief. But beliefs don't stack, they replace. And replacement requires removal. So if you believe, raising prices will make people leave, or, like if I hold boundaries, I won't be liked, or I have to do everything myself, or this industry is just hard. You can't simply add a new belief on top of that existing belief. You have to question, complete, and release the old one. That's why growth feels uncomfortable, because something familiar to you is dying.
Mm. Lindsay, one of my favorite end of year reflections is to think to myself or ask myself, are there any promises I made to others or to myself and to myself that I didn't fulfill? Are there any promises I made to myself and to others that I didn't fulfill? Like, not from
Mhm.
a place of shame, from a place of integrity,
Mhm.
because every unkept promise creates an open loop. And the
Mhm.
person you subconsciously lose trust with is actually yourself. Sometimes it's a promise to follow up with a team member. Oh, I'll do that another day when I have more time. Or maybe it's the promise to implement a system. Oh, I'll do that in March when I get time for it. Or maybe it's you know what, I gotta have a hard conversation with Jen, but I'll not today. We'll do it later. Or, starting next week, I'll start that exercise program. Closing loops actually restores self trust. And self trust is the foundation of confident leadership.
Mm. I love that, Jen. Self trust is the foundation of confident leadership. That's brilliant. And we want to give you a simple framework that you can actually use this week. You can use it right now. Grab a notebook or open your notes app or something. We're going to call this the close framework. So the C stands for capture. So what you want to do is you want to write down everything that feels unfinished. Don't judge it, don't organize it, just capture it. Ask yourself, what conversations am I avoiding? What decisions are half made? What keeps popping into my head when I'm tired? If it's stealing mental energy, it goes on that list. Step 2 is L, which is label. Now, label each item. Is it complete? Do you need to communicate it? Do you need to conclude it, or do you need to cut it? So complete would mean it needs action. Communicate means it needs a conversation. Conclude means it needs a decision. Cut means it needs to be released. Because you guys, not everything needs fixing. Some things need ending. And the next step is O, which is to own. This is the leadership moment. This is where you ask, where have I been unclear, inconsistent, or unavailable? Not your team, not the economy, not the industry, you. Ownership collapses drama. Ownership totally restores your power. Then you get to the next step, which is the S, which is where you set the end. So you want to decide how this ends. What does done look like? What does closed feel like? What is the final action or conversation? Because leaders who end things cleanly don't carry emotional debt into the next season. And the last portion is E, which is empty. This is one of the most overlooked steps. This is where you want to sit in the space that you've cleared. Don't rush to fill it. Don't immediately add goals. Let the quiet recalibrate you, because clarity loves space.
Mm, I love that. So when I was thinking about this, Lindsay, I was thinking, for some of you, like, what does closing loops look like?
Mm.
To me, it would be like reading a book that didn't have any periods in it, no periods at the end of a sentence. It would be like all jumbled together. So when we're closing loops, it's like we're actually putting periods at the end of a sentence. So this may look like, finally addressing a toxic team dynamic. It could be releasing a service provider who no longer aligns. It could be owning that your pricing doesn't match your standards. And sometimes for others, it's actually internal. It could be letting go of the belief that you're behind. Oh man, I'm so behind. I see so and so doing this and feel so behind. It could be like releasing the identity of the exhausted owner. It could be forgiving yourself for what you didn't know then. Like, you don't need a perfect year to have a powerful ending. You just need completion.
So good, and I think the salons that grow next year, they're not the ones with the biggest vision boards.
Mhm.
They're the ones with the cleanest emotional and operational slate. So when you close loops, what actually happens is energy returns, your focus sharpens, your confidence rises, and your leadership lands. And suddenly, momentum feels lighter.
Mhm. So here's our invitation to you before you plan the next year, before you set new goals, before you add more, just ask what needs to be completed, concluded, or released now. Because leadership isn't just about building, it's about ending well. And when you do that, you don't just step into a new year, you actually step into a new version of yourself. And if you want help doing this inside of your salon with your systems, your team, your leadership, we do talk deeply about this inside Salon Success Secrets and $1 Million Beauty Pro. But for now, you guys, close the loops, clear the space, and trust what comes next. We'll see you in the next episode.